Okay, so I've tried to record this a number of times, and honestly, there's a lot of little formalities that I could get to at the beginning, but I'm just gonna go right into the meat about what I really want to say about Milo from my perspective and what he's meant to me as an individual and how I feel about this situation and some of the other people involved. I don't want to name too many names and give too many prefaces, so I'm just going to go right into it. Apparently, supposedly, Milo is $2 million worth of debt to various different people. And that's being reported on by The Guardian, which is not very reliable because The Guardian vehemently hates him. But I wouldn't doubt that he's in some amount of debt, right? I feel a lot of compassion for him as an individual when seemingly so many people are saying that they don't. And I bet that they don't. I bet that they sincerely don't. And it's probably because he was arrogant and he acted like he was invincible. And people now want to say, ha, see, you're not so tough. Because when it was really relevant that he was saying that stuff, it was about 3 years ago when he really was getting started and people were really, really noticing him. Maybe two. So it's kind of awkward that all of a sudden there's all these people. Like, I'm going to call out somebody by name because I was noticing this on Twitter and I really just, it's a little too easy. Armored Skeptic. You guys remember that guy? Shoe on Head's boyfriend? Well, Shoe on Head actually came after this guy, Armored Skeptic, and Armored Skeptic made, I guess they were atheist-ish videos, and they had kind of animation things in them. I don't have a problem with the guy. I guess some of the videos were alright. A number of my friends liked them a lot. I never got into them. I thought that they were a little bit long, and I didn't like his style of skits, personally. But I didn't have anything against this guy. I didn't have anything for him. But what I do remember is that he had well over 400,000 subscribers. And there was some drama that ended up happening. And it had to do with him and his girlfriend, Shoe on Head. And then all of a sudden, everybody on YouTube turned on this guy. And it was this fashionable thing to do to attack him and throw him under the bus. And I might have made fun of him a little bit, because I remember that they would tweet things with them eating ice cream together all the time, you know, when they were visiting each other. And it was kind of like, does anybody like actually want to see that? Are people actually interested in that? Sure. But the levels of pure vindictiveness that people got into with this, and it wasn't just a few people, it was like a trend on YouTube and Twitter among the, I guess it was actually the skeptic sphere at that time. Now, granted, this was about 2.5 years ago, when that was really getting started, but people were just all over picking these guys apart. And I started to feel bad because I don't have any real reason to believe that these people did anything aside from being a popular couple that people were getting a little bit sick of seeing in media all the time. And so I see Armored Skeptic sort of taking a shot at Milo here, or taking a very big shot at Milo here. And I just have to think, wait, well, what about when you were in that position yourself and people were attacking you in these really strange ways, seemingly because you were vulnerable, seemingly because it was easy, seemingly because they knew that you weren't going to be able to fight back and defend yourself particularly well, because you were outnumbered, because you were weak, you were at a low, and people were just taking that opportunity to kick you while you were down, or to descend like a vulture and tear you apart with some other vultures. And it just kind of disappointed me to see Armored Skeptic do that to Milo. And there's a number of people that I feel are doing that. I just find that behavior I don't want to say morally reprehensible because, hey, ultimately there's a lot worse that people can do besides trash talk celebrities. You know, like Milo made it a very big point to talk about how if you can't be made fun of as a celebrity, then you have no business being in show business. Sure. Right. Granted. Sure. But at the same time, I feel like a lot of the people that are attacking him are taking for granted the contribution that he made and acting as if these things that he didn't happen, and as if just because he acted like he was invincible at the time, that, what's the best way to say this? Like, Milo won. He was up against the world, and he ended up winning. He was the strongest pundit for Trump. Like, people forget this. It's like people have such a short-term memory when it comes to politics and the socio-political pop cultural landscape of reality. But prior to Trump winning, Milo was the only person that was just fearless. Like, he was galloping manic to the mouth of the force, and he was swallowing his panic in the face of its force. Is that what I'm saying? Is that the line? Galloping manic to the mouth of the source, swallowing panic in the face of its force? This is a Joanna Newsom line. But he was doing that. Like, he was on the edge of this international zeitgeist of people saying no to the Democratic Party, no to the EU, no to the Remainers, no to the, I guess, the globalists, no to the big social media people, no to the Twitter people, no to Mark Zuckerberg, no to the Google, Facebook, YouTube, all those people. He was saying, no, we're going to stand up to you and we are going to win. And Trump was running and saying, yes, I'm going to win. And Milo was calling him daddy. And people decided to either get behind it or not to get behind it. I was always a little bit ambivalent. I remember being on a live stream with some old friends that I don't talk to anymore. But they were all Trump supporters and they were all going to vote for Trump. And we were talking about how awful Hillary Clinton was and all that kind of thing. And then they were like, well, what about you, Prince? Like, why do you support Trump? And I'm like, well, I'm actually not a Trump supporter. And they're like, oh, but you're going to vote for him anyway? And I was like, well, actually, no, I'm not going to, because I live in a state that's definitely going to go blue. So I'm going to vote third party. And they're like, oh, so why are you acting like you're a Trump supporter? And I was like, I'm going to be on the right side of history, was my answer. And, people laughed. But I felt that energy, that whatever that spirit was that was possessing Milo to keep going fearlessly, because he knew he was right and he knew that he was going to be on the right side of history. He kept going. And people act like, oh, well, battle's over. Now he made mistakes and now he's an asshole, blah, 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 blah. Well, he was basically fighting a war. He was fighting a media war, and he was almost the general of it. And people happened to win this battle, and he was on the winning side. And then people are like, oh, well, by the way, you used like some kind of mean tactics like during it, and you ended up owing these people some money. And even though we totally rode your coattails and, we wouldn't have won this war that we all won together without you, we are going to now judge you for everything that maybe you did wrong. And it's like, okay, but what if he hadn't done it at all? You wouldn't have these same results at all. And I guess that, ungrateful is one way of putting it, but I think that what is even more important than people being ungrateful is just how much of a predicament that he was actually in as an individual in order to convince himself to get up every day and say the things that he said and speak without a filter, not worry about the consequences, say, I'm just doing this for freedom of speech. Sometimes say that he was trolling because that made it a little bit easier to swallow at certain moments, or other times say that he was being completely sincere, and you could tell when he was sincere. And for people to act like, oh, yeah, well, we can judge him now because, like, I don't know why it's so easy for people to just discount him. And maybe it's because they are looking and they see that he doesn't have money anymore, supposedly, which maybe he doesn't. And they just feel like it's safe. Like they're like, oh, okay, well, now the money is going somewhere else, and so I should try to hop on that bandwagon and no longer worship Milo. Or it's maybe just that thing that used to happen when you used to like a band really a lot. Like, remember that band Crystal Castles? They were really popular earlier this decade among like the hipster scene, the electronic scene. They were very, I don't know, indie type band. They came out, and then within like 2 years everybody claimed to hate them, but it was like when that band first came out, it was like this beautiful gift from the heavens, and you all listened to it all the time, and you would bond with a new person over whether or not they listened to that band. Well, Milo was like that, but he was actually competing over something. Like, he was actually on the front lines of the culture war, and he was fighting for everybody's freedom of speech. And it's true that he did do a massive amount for the free speech movement. When I saw him speaking in the way that he was speaking about feminists and all that kind of thing, I remember thinking to myself, well, there's a little part of me that almost wishes that I would want to do that, except for I don't want to do that, and I would be bashful about it. I wouldn't have that same fearlessness, because I used to be a bit more like him. I used to be a bit more confrontational and mean and just relentlessly egotistical to the point where I was making a joke out of my own ego. And I did that, and eventually it led to this exact same result that he is now finding himself in, where it's like there's all these people that have been patiently waiting the moment where they can safely throw stones at him because they know that he's not going to throw anything back or something. And it's like when you live in your life in that way, you're asking for somebody to step up and want to challenge you, right? So I find it really unfortunate that there's so many people that are just, resorting to type, like exactly what I would expect from them. Just, oh, hey, maybe I'm going to be able to get popular now. Like, they were able to get more popular by acting like Milo and sharing his videos and, repeating his lines and the phrases that he popularized, like virtue signaling. Like they stole all this stuff from him intellectually. And then now they realize that they can also capitalize by wiping their hands clean of it and throwing him under the bus. And they are choosing to do that. I just think that that's so low. And it just makes me respect people so little when you do that. And, I might be talking about some other specific people. You might know who you are at this point when you hear me say such things. Yeah. Personally, I think the way to handle these situations, well, one, we don't actually know that he's in debt. He hasn't declared bankruptcy or anything, so we literally don't know that. It could actually be a rumor. It could be exaggerated. It could be some weird, elaborate thing that's happening. Like, there's maybe some hidden thing, and he actually does have a backer, and it was to test everybody's faith. I don't know. Probably not likely. But, ultimately, you wait and see what really happens before raising your hand. By the way, I always hated him. Like, shut up. No, okay, Mr. Coattail Rider. But more so than that, if even assuming that it's true, assuming that he is in even $2 million worth of debt, why do you have to really say anything about it at all? Like, I understand the urge if you do want to bring it up. Like, if somebody were to bring it up, you can say, hey, it's kind of a shame that he's in this much debt because he really did do a whole lot. But at the same time, he made a whole lot of mistakes, so I can't really feel that sorry for him anymore. And maybe just leave it at that. But I've seen these people just go off and just try to, it's like they're using it as a way to make themselves look better. Like, it's like, ooh, look at me. I'm even better than Milo Yiannopoulos now. It's like, oh yeah, at Milo's all-time low. Congratulations. Like, it makes me think so low of you that you decided. It's like playing the what's that where you bend over backwards, that party game, like it got really, really high, and so you just, is it La Bamba? Is that what it is? I don't remember. Like, you decided to make a show out of bending over backwards, but you barely bent over backwards at all. And it's like, oh, that's supposed to be a show-off maneuver? You're supposed to be impressing me with that? The fact that you think that that's going to impress me really makes me think that you're actually a deeply pathetic person. It's sort of what I'm actually really thinking about you. So, I would have personally liked to... And I'm not going to sit around and mince onions about all of Milo's different little mistakes, because ultimately, I guess the bottom line is this. Milo ended up alienating himself, and somebody was going to do that, whether we liked it or not, or maybe they wouldn't have. No, Milo did it. He decided to be an actual character. He decided to insert himself into this absurd drama in the way that I talked about in the video about him called Milo Breaks the Fourth Wall. And it was really a brilliant way that he did it, but he made himself into a character. He was no longer writing his own destiny. He was acting in his own destiny. And then I feel like there was no separating from that when it was all over. And, maybe to a certain degree, somebody like Steve Bannon put him up to it and knew that he was using this crazy theatrical gay guy as a political plot prop. That's what I mean, prop. Maybe that was known. Maybe somebody sort of took advantage of him. And he was never able to get his self back, his personhood back, his agency back. He could not necessarily be the writer of his own destiny. And I feel bad for that. And I don't have a solution. Like, I want to be able to offer some advice or something. But when something similar happened to me, it was with one group of friends that all sort of saw me as this. And I don't mean group of friends, I mean entire social scene. Thousands of people saw me as this Milo Yiannopoulos type guy, except for most people didn't have any idea who I was. Well, now there's not really that many places that he can go on Earth that people won't figure out who he is. So I don't have any advice for that. I don't. But I feel like I do have more empathy for the situation than the dramatic majority of people, because I feel like I understand the type of fearlessness that it took to do that. And then the complete alienation of being that type of guy, that type of provocateur, also being a gay guy, making a joke out of one's ego. Yeah, I feel like I do at least kind of get it. And I don't know. I still have a great appreciation of the guy. I can't say I'm glued to watching his YouTube channel or anything, because, yeah, I did get tired of him. I mean, he was kind of a character, and everybody saw it a bit much. So I guess my advice would be to stay out of the limelight, but I don't know how he'll make money exactly. So I don't know. I don't know. I feel for him though. I do. And anybody who was a fan of his that doesn't feel for him at all, you kind of disgust me. Yeah, I guess that's it.